I call it different levels of rude. So people have different perceptions of speaking up. So let's say, for example, you're in a meeting and, maybe there's 8 or 10 people in the meeting and the leader says, okay, we have to figure out what are we going to do about this? We got to solve this problem. And everyone works with at least a couple of people that will just jump in and start talking. Right? Jim always has something to say, right? Constant. They just jump in and start talking. And maybe you're that person that doesn't just jump in. So you're just kind of sitting there thinking to yourself, well, I have the answer. Like, I could solve this. Like, I know what if somebody would just ask me. If Jim would shut up long enough to let me speak up, then I could, say something, if I get a word in edgewise. And by the time you feel like you can, because you don't want to interrupt, you don't want to be rude. So you sit there and don't say anything. Well, all of a sudden it's like, okay, meeting adjourned. And you're walking out and you're thinking about how you feel in that moment. Because you probably feel like, man, I have ideas. I have solutions. Nobody bothers to ask me. I've worked here 8 years and never once been asked for my opinion. And we feel bad. The flip side of that, though, is that people that tend to speak up assume you will too. So you walk out of that meeting upset. Jim is, as you walk out, thinking, man, what's her deal? Right? She's worked here 8 years and never once had an idea. That's not it at all. So our willingness to speak up matters. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, before we move on, I'd like to add to that. Before we move on, I'd like to comment on that. Before we jump to the next topic, I'd like to build on that. I've got a thought I'd like to share about that. And our willingness just to have our voice heard, even when your voice shakes, our willingness to speak up. And does that mean you're always going to get your way? No, of course not. But it's important that you train yourself to speak up.